Kirby's gone through many different directors. Sakurai, Shimomura, Kumazaki, these have all been under HAL Labs, but I always find some of the more interesting Kirby games to look at and discuss are the Arika Kirby games. Obviously, I don't hold some, or really most of these, in the highest regard, but regardless of their quality, they at least stand out. Okay, well maybe not all of them. And I think they're fun to talk about. Now, I say all this because it's been forever since I mentioned Nightmare in Dreamland last, and here we are starting off the top 10 talking about Amazing Mirror. Opinions on this game actually seem pretty split, which has always surprised me. I know a lot of people who hold this game in the absolute highest regard, with some who think it's the greatest Kirby game ever made, if not one of them, while others see it as a poor man's Metroidvania, and because of that, they can't fully enjoy it either as a Metroidvania or even as a Kirby. I shouldn't have to spell out for you which camp I fall under, but I at least wanted to address some common criticisms with this game and at least explain why I'm not bothered by most of them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What immediately stands out about Amazing Mirror compared to other Kirby games is, of course, the Metroidvania style. Rather than progress from level to level, point A to point B, the game is fully non-linear, allowing you to freely explore whatever direction you want. It isn't aimless, fortunately, thanks to a linear beginning. See, when the game starts, it plays out like a normal Kirby game. You go from room to room in a brief yet solid tutorial area, no forced text here, and it's all up to you to learn the controls. And then you're taken to the main hub. There's only one door here, so you enter that one, taking you to Rainbow Route. You traverse through Rainbow Route for a bit, probably get taken to Moonlight Mansion, and then from there, a world of possibilities opens up. You can tackle the game in quite literally any order you want. A common complaint I've heard about this game is that, unlike the standard Metroidvania, there's no sense of progression. Since the only power-ups Kirby gets are the copy abilities, standard fare for Kirby, there aren't, for example, any areas blocked off by something you don't get until later in the game. In my case, that's just something I've never liked about Metroidvania games. I like my non-linear stuff to be as free-form as they could possibly be. If I go to a late game area early in the game, cool. My creativity and exploration has been rewarded. And, as I stated, copy abilities fill the same functions as power-ups in a Metroidvania otherwise would. I understand the satisfaction of getting a power-up at a fixed moment in a game and using it from there. It's just, for me, I don't like that in a game so free-form like this. The only thing stopping you from getting a copy ability in Amazing Mirror is finding it, and nothing is stopping you from exploring any random area in the entire game to find it. Using my own favorite ability as an example, if I wanted to get Parasol, I just need to find an area that has a Parasol Waddle Dee or something, then boom, I have it. Say World 4 was locked behind some kind of power-up that I had to beat, say, Worlds 2 and 3 first to access. I would hate that. Another complaint I hear is that, because the game has no direction, a lot of the levels blend in with each other. Since I see it less as no direction and more as highly explorable, this isn't an issue for me to begin with, but as it is, I don't think the levels blend together at all. Each of them stands out because they all focus on a different type of exploration. Moonlight Mansion, for instance, is fairly straightforward Metroidvania fare, but for Kirby, deciding between going for the upper route or the lower one is a unique experience. One that's unique even compared to something like Great Cave. And on the flip side, not many Metroidvania games have the tight underwater controls that Kirby has, so while Olive Ocean isn't too out of the ordinary for Kirby, it spices things up on the Metroidvania side. Radish Ruins I've always felt to be the perfect mix of the two styles, a Metroidvania exploration combined with Kirby puzzle solving, culminating in a fight with Mennonite at the end. It's great stuff. One thing I've always loved about the Arika Kirby games is how Kirby controls. I don't think Squeak Squad was interesting enough overall to warrant mentioning this much, and while Nightmare in Dreamland doesn't have this issue, I, obviously, find myself preferring the controls in Kirby's Adventure over that one instead. Amazing Mirror has neither of these issues. It stands out well enough, and it doesn't have an original to be compared to, so I can finally gush about how good Kirby's movement is in these games. The speed at which he runs, the angles at which he jumps, how he floats, how he falls, how copy abilities feel, it's all so great. I think, purely as far as movement goes, these games nailed it the best. Considering this game is so exploration heavy, I can't overstate how important it is having movement this good. Every time I watch a speedrun of this game, I am in awe of how well Kirby can move through these levels. Speaking of speedrunning, this game is amazing to speedrun. Not surprising, since I did admit to Nightmare in Dreamland being a better game to run than Adventure, and for much of the same reasons. Movement. Routing for this game in particular is insane, considering that basically every level is accessible as early as you want it to be. I knew someone who routed a speedrun for this game going linearly, Moonlight Mansion to Candy Constellation in numerical order, and yeah, you can totally do that. I've also seen runs of this game involving the multiplayer, and that's just completely off the wall. It's so great. Of course, I have to talk about the multiplayer. This was in Nightmare in Dreamland as well, but it feels very half-baked there, to me. But here, it's integrated incredibly well. The whole point of this game is having 4 Kirbys, of course. What sets the multiplayer in this game apart from others is that everybody can go off and just kind of do their own thing. One Kirby can be exploring Peppermint Palace, while another can be messing around in Rainbow Route, trying to find doors that lead to new areas. And if a Kirby needs help, or an obstacle requires multiple Kirbys, the cell phone is there to bring every Kirby together. Now, that last part applies to the single player as well, although when the Kirbys are off on their own, the computer won't actually unlock anything for you. Which is almost a shame, because my biggest complaint with Amazing Mirror actually revolves around the unlockables, the treasure chests. Now, to be fair, there are some very good unlockables in this game. I adore the spray paint, something that really needs to be in another Kirby game, come on! And I'm always down for unlocking music. And there are gameplay-related unlockables too, like extra health being the biggest one, and that's always good. But what most of the treasure chests amount to, unfortunately, is food, health restoration. I never understood why food, something that you can just find in almost every other game, is hidden behind a puzzle in a treasure chest. I appreciate that opening a treasure chest doesn't kill the pace of the game, but I wish these either had more meaningful things in them, or they just weren't there. The insignificant ones, at least. Again, to reiterate, I love moving through this game's many obstacles and finding something like spray paint. It's rewarding in all the best ways. I'm mixed on the maps, though. On the one hand, exploring without them is a big pain since you can't see which rooms you haven't been to yet. Once you find an area's map, you can see the whole thing, where unexplored rooms are, how to get there, etc. And even before you find the map, you can still see the rooms in each area that you've already explored, just not how they link to the unknown. Finding the map is insanely helpful, but should it even have been a thing you have to find? I don't actually have an answer to this, simply because I don't even know if I like it or not, but I at least admit that it's an unlockable I'd go out of my way to find any day. What I do know for a fact is that I really dig the presentation. This game goes for a similar style to Nightmare in Dreamland, with detailed backgrounds and a bright, colorful palette with solid sprite work. It stands out from Nightmare in Dreamland 4, of course not being a remake, but also for going with a different aesthetic. Kirby's Adventure didn't have a mansion, or a volcano, or ruins. It had a water world, yeah, but that one was much softer, with the sunset in the back in the early levels, and the night towards the end. Olive Ocean is, well, the ocean. Lots of varying shades of blue, green, seaweed, etc. Rainbow Resort and Candy Constellations look nothing alike, despite both having a space aesthetic either. The sprites for the bosses, I think, are the best looking characters in the entire game, possibly barring Kirby himself. Their designs are incredible. I've always remembered the Mega Titan for not only the unique boss fight, but also the really cool design. And you've also got some staples, such as Meta Knight and Krakow, and they still look really good. And Wiz, I love the Magician aesthetic. And the fight, pretty fun too. So none of that should come as a surprise. I like how Nightmare in Dreamland looked, I like how this game looks. What may surprise you, depending on how much influence you think this being a Kirby game has on my decision, is that I adore this game's soundtrack. The GBA has many people split on whether or not they actually like its music, and while I'm not a fan of everything GBA, I tore Nightmare in Dreamland apart on that front, it can work. The music just had to be made for the GBA, and Amazing Mirrors was made for the GBA. Similar to many Kirby soundtracks, what I like the most about the music in this game is simply the variety. You have your fun tracks, your energetic ones, the intense stuff, some ambience and atmosphere here and there, the headbangers. It all comes together so well. When I'm exploring Radish Ruins, the music makes me feel like I'm exploring Radish Ruins. When I'm slipping on ice in Peppermint Palace, the music fits. This applies to every area in the game, even the minigames of all things. And the boss music, oh, don't even get me started. The normal boss theme is good enough, but then Dark Mennonite's battle theme is one of those headbangers I was talking about before. That's not even the best one, though, because Dark Mind, the final boss, has 3 different tracks devoted to the many, many phases of its boss fight. In particular, Phase 2 has always been one of my favorite tracks in the whole series. And yeah, speaking of Dark Mind, let's talk about that boss fight. Oh boy! To some, it overstays its welcome, but I've always felt it was so climactic. Chasing down Dark Mind throughout the mirror world with every fight getting you closer to fighting the real Dark Mind, and then this. Not only a fantastic nod to Dreamland 3's Zero boss fight, but in some ways, it's even more messed up. At least once every time I play this fight, I think about how you deal damage by stabbing the iris specifically with the sword. Ooh. But then you beat Phase 2, and you suddenly have a shoot-'em-up boss? And when you beat it, you keep shooting away at Dark Mind while the credits roll. That is so cool. The idea of a final boss fight transitioning into the credits is something I'd expect from a 2010s indie game. But nope, here's Kirby doing this in 2004. Wrapping it up, Amazing Mirror, it's amazing. I know, but come on, it's amazing. I respect the opinions of people who don't get into this game as much as I do, but I've never agreed with the notion that this game is anything less than outstanding. We live in an era of gaming right now where freedom and creativity are valued over almost anything else. So in my book, this game has only gotten better with age. Not only does it have a lot of what made early to mid 2000s games good, but it's also got the appeal for the modern era too. Fun to explore, fun to speedrun, fun to play. That is Amazing Mirror.